Hi, folks. Welcome to Leadership and Innovation Unlocked with Inclusive Collective, where we bring you news and analysis of the latest in people and workplace culture and share stories and learnings of leaders and organizations driving performance and innovation through inclusion. I am your co-host, Nadia Butt. I'm a workplace culture strategist and talent management consultant, and I am here with my very, very dear friend and colleague, Rob Hadley, a people and culture strategist specializing in operational excellence, transformations, and analytics. Rob Hadley, welcome back. It has been a while.
We're here.
We're back. People,
We're back.
They said to return, and so we listened.
They said it couldn't be done. They said we couldn't.
They did say that. Maybe we said
people.
That.
Yeah. Well, it's so hard. Like, and anyone that's ever done a podcast will tell you, like, if you stop doing it, it's almost impossible to get yourself to come back, right?
Totally.
Because it's just tons of work, and like there's an
Coordination.
energy that needs to come into it, and
Yeah.
so we're ready. We're back. We're ready.
We're ready. You know what I will tell you? It's funny because, I'm excited. We talked about like what we're excited about on the podcast in an earlier clip. And one of the things that I'm excited to talk about this season is this concept of burnout and like fatigue. And I think I will be honest, I think last year, like I think if I reflect now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was burnt out. Like I recognized I needed a break in certain things.
Yeah.
But I don't need a break from you, Rob.
Well, that's good because you haven't had one because we
That's right.
spend all of our time together.
We
So
do.
what have you been up to, right? So one of the things that people will notice is that you are now a doctor, right? So you got
I am.
so tell us, what have you been up to since we signed off?
Since our last episode in 2024, I have since defended my dissertation. So I am officially Dr. Nadia Butt. And that was just a really beautiful way to wrap up my year 2024. And then I did walk in my ceremony in May of 2025. So that was really cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations again.
Yeah, thank you so much. What else have I been other than that? Of course, like as you know, and sometimes you join me, have like client projects. I think, board meetings. I think I've been doing, I guess, what every overachiever does best, which is like too much thinking, planning too far ahead, running on mostly caffeine, convincing myself that everything is fine. Life's great.
Yeah.
And the occasion, the other thing that I've been doing is I started lifting weights. And so I joined this gym, and you know this, but I'll share with our listeners that I've been really focused on my wellness and well-being this year, and like lifting weights. I found this gym that I really like has built community, and so really focus on kind of that component of my life as well. So it helps kind of throw in that balance.
You have definitely been more, and we haven't talked about this because why not just talk about everything?
Yeah.
On the podcast. But yeah, you've definitely been more centered. I think, when you were pretty ground down when we were wrapping up the last time.
Yep.
As you were going through as you were finishing up the PhD program. So you look great. You sound great.
Same. You do too. What have you been up to?
I haven't done a thing. I haven't done anything.
I don't believe it.
I've been sitting right here, like for the entire time, waiting for you to come back. And I think I used that joke before in a previous season, but I've been reading those books back there.
You've been reading those books. Oh, you've been doing a lot of work. I feel like we've been
still do a ton of work, analytics for DEI around building cultures of inclusion. A lot of work to build equity in the people process. More focused on operational excellence and cultures of operational excellence and high performing cultures. Starting to work on cultural framework for AI adoption as well, which we're going to talk a lot about AI over the next few weeks.
Sure.
And but I was traveling most of this year, so I was Monday through Thursday in another city far from home, and so now I'm just really making up for lost time, driving my son all over Salt Lake City for soccer games,
Yeah,
like,
big
and
soccer
and
player we got.
I'm basically his taxi
His
service.
Uber.
So that's all I do. That's what I do. So
That's
so good to
great.
be back. Good to be
Yes,
back.
it really
So
is.
let's talk about what we got on leadership and innovation unlocked this week, right? So let's dive right back into it.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about news from Google and Toyota,
Yes.
and then we're going to chat about the relaunch of the podcast. We got some listener questions that I'm super excited about. And finally, we'll have some rants and raves, which we've been saving up for, a year and a
Oh
half
my
at this
God. There's
point.
like a year and a half worth of raves and rants. Yeah.
Yes.
We'll only talk about two, but yeah.
But first, let's get to something we call the deets. Nadia,
Yes,
what do you got?
indeed.
What do you got for us this week?
All right. So this week, I came across a recent article on Google, about Google, like the company, from MSNBC and HR Digest and Google. I think it's really relevant right now because there's so much talk about return to office and hybrid work and remote work. But
Yep.
Google is tightening what they call their work from anywhere, their WFA policy, by
Mm-hmm.
adding newer restrictions. So, of course, this policy was created at the start of the pandemic to give employees more flexibility, in terms of where they work from. So, under the new rules, even a single day of remote work under WFA now counts as a full week toward the annual WFA allotment. And so
Okay.
employees are no longer allowed to use WFA for working from home or nearby, even. It must be used for remote work from a more distant location.
So go farther away.
Yeah, go further away. But then they also prohibit to work using that policy to work from another state or country because of its legal and financial concerns, right? They have all these like legalities in place. So I just thought this was really interesting, particularly as we've noticed like several other organizations like Amazon, Citigroup, Salesforce, Apple, X, right? They're all updating their return to office strategies
Mm-hmm.
for various reasons. And so, I wanted to kind of take note on that. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, if you have
Well,
any.
well, one,
I'm sure you do.
one, I didn't understand it. So thank you for laying that out
Yeah.
because I read the article like 3 times, and even in the article, like there was an employee being quoted as saying, "This is too confusing for
Yeah.
me,"
Yeah.
like what their policy is. So I was
Right.
like, "Oh, thankfully," because I didn't understand it at all. So it doesn't seem as egregious to me because it just seems like like a very confusing thing, right? They had a confusing policy and they're trying to clarify it, and I don't know if they succeeded. Amazon or Microsoft saying that some roles need to be in the office 5 days a week. That
Yeah.
sounds egregious to me, right? That seems more like clearly a desire to shed headcount than anything to do with increasing productivity
Yeah. Sure.
or any kind of cultural beliefs about, what the cultural benefits that they're hoping to derive from that, right? So,
I would agree.
when you take away flexibility, you're being less inclusive. You're limiting the types of people that can do that particular role.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, it makes sense, and it's a very reasonable argument. More often than not, it doesn't, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, flexibility in all the research that we have so far leads to greater organizational trust, better retention. You can pay people less because
Mm-hmm.
people value it more
Yep.
than money, right? And
Yeah.
so, all without a drop in productivity. So, to me, it's like,
What are we doing?
it's always like when you see it, I always think about what's the ulterior motive because it's certainly not the things that they say is motivating
Sure.
that change, right? So,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think you mentioned some of like the benefits to keeping the workforce, having it be more flexible. On the other hand, I will just share um the positive side in terms of what leaders are expressing. Not that I believe in, but what they are expressing can strengthen like the collaboration. They
Uh-huh.
think it can spark innovation, right? Kind of through those
Sure.
like spontaneous interactions with people, maybe help rebuild team culture, team cohesion. But as like you said, as we know, the studies and the research really isn't there. You can still be able to do those things, whether you're remote, whether you're hybrid. And I know that I'm speaking more generally about a work from home, like a return to
Yep.
office policy versus what Google is doing in their kind of WFA policy. But I just thought that was interesting because I think that is something that is on everyone's mind, at least as of late. Particularly the clients and the employees that I speak to. This is one of the key drivers to inclusion that is mentioned.
It just keeps going, right?
Keeps
Like we're
going.
always
It's the gift that keeps giving.
it keeps on giving.
Yeah.
So
All
great.
right.
Well,
Yeah.
I wanted to share something. I figured, we're coming back. Everyone would expect me to come in with something super, super inflammatory. But I want to talk about something nice that I
Okay.
think about a company
Yeah.
that's something that's innovative that they're doing. And I want to talk about Toyota's efforts to accommodate workers' needs for childcare
Mhm.
in their Sheffield, Iowa plant. Nadia, have you been to Sheffield,
I've never
Iowa?
been to Sheffield. I have been to Iowa, but
I,
I've never been to Sheffield.
it's about 100 miles from Des Moines.
Yeah.
And the company had faced retention issues from some employees. They had to drive to 45 miles in order to get childcare. So the company formed a coalition with a bank and a local school district, and they received matching state funds to build a large childcare facility. The company developed since multiple facilities in multiple plant locations. The hours of the childcare are aligned with the shifts of the parents so that they're working a night shift and their beds for the children to actually stay there. So, I want to get your thoughts, but I just want to note here that, we're in the middle of a government shutdown right now as we talk about this. And
Right.
so I don't want to be partisan. I mean, but just noting this is in Iowa, and the governor there, Kim Reynolds, is a very strong anti-DEI person. And
Sure.
here they are funding this daycare center, which gives people, often women, the opportunity to work in these jobs, right?
Sure.
And so it's an equity initiative from a place where uh, people will not say equity out loud, right, and
Right.
things like that.
Right.
So your thoughts on
Yeah,
as you
no,
saw
I
this?
appreciate you bringing up such a positive story. Because oftentimes I think when we share the deeds, it's always something like, "Oh, look again what they did." But I also think that you and I would categorize this particular accommodation under DE&I, whereas I don't even know if the governor or if even I would imagine Toyota's leadership team would, but I don't know if people actually would categorize this under equity, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's like the first thing that comes to my mind is like, okay, but nevertheless, I overall I see this trend or this idea as like a very bold and necessary move. Like we have in the past talked about childcare and organizations supporting parents and supporting families, and the fact that you have like this local bank, a school district, the government, the state government providing funds to really chip in and support this need. To me, it's innovative, it's necessary. Um, you know, I think about like the different social contracts that exist that are going to start to exist or for the most part exist in general, and how moving into the domain of employers is kind of critical and will be very interesting. We'll talk more about that I think this season. But what does that mean for leadership? What does that mean for like responsibility? What does that mean for employee well-being, right? And those are all the things that I think they're trying that at least this accommodation or policy or practice is trying to mitigate in terms of an employee's stress or hardship of having coverage for their child. So I like it. Go Toyota. They do a lot of fun things. This is one thing that I'll agree to. I just hope that in the midst of all this craziness going on, that it doesn't get taken away. All right.
Well, maybe now that we've identified it as an equity type program, then
Yeah.
they'll
Well,
want to
now
pull
that we
back on
yeah,
it.
now that we've been like the stamp of equity, they're gonna be like,
Yeah,
decline,
because
cancel.
yeah,
So,
Kim Reynolds, regular listener to our podcast, but I want people to understand this is an equity program, right? Like even if they don't necessarily think that, it is,
it
right?
is.
Because it makes and equity makes a company more competitive,
Yes.
right? It gives people the opportunity, it drives down turnover, it makes it possible so that people can be able to contribute their fullest and innovate, all the things that we care about, all the things
Right.
that companies care about. And so, I couldn't agree more. And, just this is the type of thing that people should be doing. And if they want to call it something different, that's fine.
Yep.
But I'm sorry, this is equity.
This is equity.
Yeah.
That's going to be our new motto. This is equity. Well, thanks for that, Rob. That's it for the deets. We'll be right back, folks, to answer listener questions about the return of Leadership and Innovation Unlocked with Inclusive Collective.
Welcome back, Nadia.
Yes.
We asked, as we were coming back on the air here, we had some people told us for months, right? Like, when's the podcast coming back, right?
For months.
So then we reached out to some of those folks and said, hey, can you give us some questions? What do you want to know? We haven't been around for a while. What's on your mind? What are the things you want to hear Rob and Nadia talk about on the old podcast show?
Yeah.
Right. We asked for some, I was hoping to get some softballs, and what we got was anything but some things and actually got a lot. So we'll have to come back to some of them. So, but where do you want to start?
Yeah. So there's essentially 3 questions that I think were, really good ones that I thought we could talk about. I'll start off with the first. This is really related to like workplace trends, but what is one workplace trend that you don't think leaders can ignore right now? I thought that was such a good question, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a softball.
There's and I'm excited to hear yours, actually.
Okay.
I'm not going to talk about AI because we're going to talk about AI like in
all season,
so many ways.
Yeah.
But I would say, interestingly and invariably, when we've worked with clients over the last 2 to 3 years, and we look at data on sentiment or how people feel about the workplace, or if there's a conflict within the workplace, the differences aren't racial or gender based; that they're generational. There's radical differences in the perspectives between Gen Z and even millennial.
Yeah.
Millennials are like 40 now. And of course, Gen X, right, which is my generation. We're all dead inside at this point. So
I'm on the cusp, by the way. I have like some traits. You probably have seen that or observed
that. You're exennial?
Is that what that's called? Yeah.
That's exennial. I'm an exennial too. So,
okay.
And barely. I may be reaching. But so at the same time, according to AIHR, that place, right? Yeah. They refer to this as the golden age of the silver worker. So older workers staying longer.
Oh.
I actually worked with a 70-plus-year-old co-worker for most of this year. Shout out Ron. But so we both have a labor shortage driven by strict immigration policies. Women leaving the workforce, higher levels than we thought.
Yeah.
And people can't retire because there's no savings. So keeping a pulse on those generational perspectives, being able to relate and have conversations with Gen Z and understand their expectations of the workforce, and then accommodating older workers is all something that I think that people really need to be tuned into right now. What do you got?
That's funny. I didn't frame it like that, but 100% you were spot on. And I'll just say I also had the opportunity with our good friend and writer contributor to Forbes, Aparna Ray. I had the opportunity to talk about generational differences in an article earlier this year. And so I didn't frame it in the way in which you did. I agree with you, but I'll also just add to what you're saying, like in a period right now where the workplace is redefined by these shifting expectations from employees, right? They're really like, at least from what I've observed, the newer generation, they're really like they're purpose driven work. And what I mean by that is like they really are looking for like the flexibility. They're looking for that psychological safety that we talk about all the time. And I honestly do think they're looking for more like meaningful development, meaningful interactions, and not just a paycheck, like not just something where they come in, they get a paycheck. Like, I think they want that and they need that, but especially because they can't afford to buy homes. But I think, right, like
and
it's
never
true.
Will. Yes.
Right. But I think they're looking for like that alignment to their values, alignment to their ultimate goals. and really looking for a place to like build a skill set and really kind of like demand certain things in the workplace. And so when I talk about like the flexibility, and we just talked about like return to office, like I think they're looking for things like that. They're looking for the flexibility in the way that they work and the way that they interact. And I think a lot of that is generational. So I think you framed it in a way that, yeah, if I were to like peel back the layers, I think it's around some of those components for sure.
Right, right.
Yep.
Cool. Did you what trend did you have that people shouldn't be ignoring?
That was it. It was
That
like
was it.
shifting employee. Yeah, you just framed it in a
Expectations.
way
Yeah.
that was like more eloquent than me. I did have AI on there, of course, but you know, like we know we'll talk about that the remainder of this of the season. But I definitely think it's not ignoring kind of these expectations from employees.
So we went away for a year and a half. We came back and we both showed up with the exact same thing.
The same
Awesome.
thing.
Well done.
We are
Well
the
done.
same person,
Well
twins.
done.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the second question is around like cultural components. So,
Okay.
what are some foundational components of an organization's culture that can enable it to navigate high levels of uncertainty?
Okay. So you want me to go first?
You go first, yeah.
All right. So I had, so, I think that I was actually tossing and turning the other night. I was thinking about trust as almost like the
Oh,
separate
I had that
component.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you might say psychological safety,
Hmm.
right? But trust becomes like the underlying or the foundational element of psychological safety. So that, we would expect both answers there. But I think that, and I'll go back to, well, let's talk about AI now, right? So
Yeah.
it's a topic of great uncertainty, right? That's what everyone's uncertain about what this is going to mean. And so let's say that you're a big insurance company headquartered in Boston,
Uh-huh.
right? And you do layoffs every 6 months or so. Like just this is part of the way that you of your business
Hmm.
cycle. Or let's say you're Target, and 3 years ago you were the CEO and you were crying and talking about how important DEI was to you, and then now you don't talk about DEI. So
Oh,
so
yeah.
now something like AI comes along
Yeah.
and you come to the workforce and you say, I need you to feel safe in experimenting so we can get something out of AI, right? Like, I need you to not worry about losing your job.
Right.
So, the workforce may do it, but there's not going to be the commitment. You're not necessarily attached to that
Yeah.
organization, right? And
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
so once that trust is gone, then it makes it a lot harder to deal with uncertainty of anything that comes toward that particular workforce
Mm.
or team or whatever. So trust is I'm trying to rethink trust in everything that I do and really understand like how it matters to whatever type of change that we're trying to implement
Sure.
and really build around that. So and
Yeah.
you had the same some
I
of the
had well,
same thoughts.
I had like three or four. So
Okay.
trust was one of them, and
Yep.
I think the second one that might align to trust is actually communication, because I've just observed like oftentimes some of the challenges that organizations are facing center around how we communicate, when we communicate. Like I think of change management and like how and when are so critical. How often, the frequency, the mechanism in which we do, what we talk about. So I think trust, communication, I think transparency is critical. And
Right.
then I also think this last one of like a learning mindset. And so I think when you have leaders that are open about what's changing, and they involve people in like in that sense making, like a that approach in sense making, then they're going to reduce their fear. Like I think,
Mm-hmm.
right, like psychological safety particularly becomes the foundation at that point. And so ultimately I think uncertainty can become less threatening when people believe that their voices matter and
Mm-hmm.
that mistakes, like you said, like if you were to take a stab and be innovative and test something or pilot something, right? A mistake, they're not treated as failure, but they're treated as learning moments and treated as like data and information. I think that's when that's when you can see like an organization become more like successful. So um, yeah, I think that's how I would answer that question.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I'm grappling with trust and how it fits into like so even if you say okay transparency, well,
all of
transparency
that
is one
is.
thing that you do, that you build trust, right?
Totally. Yeah, yeah. That's why I said like communication is part of like
Communication is
trust.
like you
Yeah.
can be really, you can have a 45-person communications team, but if there's no trust in the leaders of that organization, people
Yeah.
will just blow right through it, right? They will not. You could do all the things right in the way that you communicate, but if that trust hasn't been established prior, then it's not as effective, right?
Totally.
And so like
Totally.
I'm like, it can't be as simple as that. Trust is everything,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
because there's so many, right? To build it is
but
really, there's
yeah.
no
So I'm trying to like,
recipe. Like there's ingredients and there's different components of it, but it's also very
yeah.
personalized.
I'm trying to figure out the math of how it all fits together. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but we're all right. What
All
once
right.
again
Question
we're on the
3.
same page.
So, so this is the third question. Leaders are
Okay.
struggling with accountability. If a client, CEO, or executive director came to you and said they were struggling with accountability, what would you do?
Okay. So one, I think that you know actually this happened, right? And
Yeah,
so I think that the first thing is to break apart and really understand what aspect of accountability is what they're struggling with, right?
yeah,
It's like that's something that happens all the time to us, right? People
sure.
come and say, someone with a very broad term, they say we're struggling with accountability. I want to prove accountability. So you really want to get an understanding of what that means,
Yeah.
right? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And
How do you
this is a
define that?
great use of Gen AI, right? So you can say, hey, give me a validated model of organizational accountability. Obviously, you're looking for the right sources and exploring all the dimensions of accountability that could be problematic, right?
Sure.
Choose one that speaks to you, clearly define the problem. It could be an issue with expectation setting. Is it transparency that you
Mm-hmm.
just talked about and the way that decisions are made? Is it about the rewards people are given? Is it an equity issue in that certain people are held accountable and and other folks aren't,
Sure.
right? So really want to define the problem. So then you can actually take some clear steps in order to close the gaps that you have, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would agree with all of that. What I might add is definitely like this component. I think I would probably like you can definitely use generative AI or whatever you call it. I'm still not skilled up to that yet, but like if I was like coaching a leader on them reflecting on their accountability, I think that's the first step is like the fact that they are reflecting on it. To me, reflection is a component of learning and growth. And so I probably would ask more open-ended questions that are related to things like, how are you setting clear expectations? Like, how are you following up consistently? How are you modeling behaviors that you expect from others, right? Because
Hmm.
I think for me, it's like them being able to reflect on their current behaviors and then seeking input from others. That's why I think assessments like a 360 feedback or just in general, getting feedback from your staff is really critical to understanding how you are leading and how you are being held accountable, getting feedback from even your community or your clients. Like that's also another way for to measure accountability. I also think it's just relational, right? And so like in the sense that like ask leaders just asking themselves like, here's what I'll do, here's what I'll stop do. Like there's this I don't know if you remember, like we used to use this model like start, stop, continue.
For sure.
What will you stop doing in terms of you could use it as a behavior, but you could also use it as like a metric or target. What will you stop or a project? What will you stop working on? What will you continue working on? What will you start working on? And so I think that's another way to have clarity around expectations or targets and goals.
Yeah, I love that, and it's a great ad because what I was thinking was make sure that you can very clearly define that problem, right? There's
Yes.
many aspects of accountability, but
Yeah.
no matter what it is, if you're the leader, then you have a big role in whatever the answer to that particular problem is,
100%.
right? Like
Yeah, for sure.
your role in an accountability in the organization has an outsized impact on what happens throughout the organization,
Absolutely.
right? So
Yep. Yeah.
cool.
So thanks to those listeners for those questions. I thought they were really great. And Rob, thanks for playing along as always.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Rob. We like to wrap things up with something that we call rants and raves, if you remember that. And we're gonna let's go ahead and do it. And you go first because you like to rant.
I
So I
don't.
wanted
I
to make
don't.
sure you had.
I don't necessarily like
I
to
know you don't
rant.
like to, but you always have good
The
ones. So what do
world
we rant?
forces us to.
The world does
I live
force
in
us to.
Utah, so Utah makes you rant a lot,
Oh
right?
yeah, that's true.
All
Are
right,
you
so we're gonna talk
ranting
about
about
Utah.
Utah? Oh,
We're gonna
here
talk
we
about
go.
Utah. It's
Okay.
very top of mind, right? So, Republican lawmakers voted against recommending a University of Utah trustee be reappointed to the university's school board. Maria Garcias has been on the board for 4 years, has a stellar record of service to the community, of service to the community. So, what did Miss Garcias do to earn this rare rebuke, Nadia? I ask you. Well, according to Senator Chris Wilson, she used the word equity and
Oh,
inclusion in her presentation.
oh boy.
So, if you recall, when we last left each other,
Yeah.
Utah had passed a law to eliminate DEI in education, and the reason was that DEI had a negative consequence of limiting free speech.
Oh
So,
boy.
you're without it. So in 2025, without a shred of irony or hypocrisy, the mention of the word equity can have you, can cause you to lose your position. So, we've been through this for a few years now, and we
Yeah.
can certainly have thoughtful conversations about how best to lead and how to have equity and inclusion in organizations and universities.
Yeah.
But we should all agree, to cut the McCarthyism. You said this, so you have to leave bullshit
Yeah.
out, right?
Yeah. It's like canceling to the max. It's
Yeah,
wild.
yeah, yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I have comments, but this isn't the place for that. The rants and raves is usually just the rant and the rave. But I will end on a happier note. So recently, UC Berkeley's Omar Yagi shares the 2025 Nobel Prize in
Mm.
chemistry. Omar was born in Amman, Jordan, to a Palestinian refugee family. He is a UC Berkeley chemist renowned for pioneering I don't even know if I can say this correctly, but reticular chemistry,
Mm.
assembling molecular structures into open crystalline frameworks like metal organic frameworks, MOFs, and covalent organic frameworks, COFs.
Yeah,
What a
makes sense to me.
mouthful.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
So after moving to the US at 15, he earned degrees from SUNY Albany and University of Illinois, later found holding faculty roles at Arizona State, Michigan, UCLA, and now Berkeley. His groundbreaking work enables applications in carbon capture, clean energy, and water harvesting from desert air, earning him global recognition, including this 2025 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. And he does some other things related to like AI driven discovery. Maybe we can get him on the podcast. I don't know, but I
Yeah.
wanted to share this great achievement from an immigrant because immigrants, they get the job done.
Yeah, and I think, and so that actually brings me to, something I wasn't going to talk about, but I don't know if you know that my spouse we were just at an event where she was, so one, she was recognized as the alumna of the year for the medical school, the
Yep.
University of Utah, which is, we're very, super proud of her and all her
Super proud.
achievements,
Yep.
and she's an amazing in all aspects, and she is an immigrant, right?
Yep.
And so we think about what she has added to not just my life, but I mean the entire
To
community,
a lot of her
to
community
her
and
profession,
patients. Yep.
into her patients, into the profession,
Yep.
and
Dr.
then
Juliana Simonetti.
yeah, and then and then we were there, and they were honoring all these other folks there as well, right? And so
I love
to
that.
think about, there's and a lot of immigrant contributions as well, certainly in the field of medicine. So,
Yeah.
really thankful that you brought that up and reminded me that how close to home that is for me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, congrats to her.
Yeah.
And it looks like that wraps up
She'll never hear that at the end of at
She
the end
probably
of the
won't listen
episode.
that far. She'll be like, all right. We'll make sure she does, though.
Yes, yes. All right, Nadia. Leadership and Innovation Unlocked is a production of Inclusive Collective Media and edited by Ari Mathey. I guess I have a double rant. Welcome back to Ari.
Welcome
I'm
back
so
to
happy that
Ari.
Ari's
We
back
love
with us.
it.
Yeah. We would love to hear from our listeners. Thanks again for those questions. So send us your feedback at inclusivecollectivepodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe or follow, I believe, in Apple Podcast language, and rate. Rate us. We'll take whatever you got, wherever you get your podcasts, right? And make sure to share us with your friends. Thanks again to Dr. Nadia Butt. We'll see you all in 2 weeks on November 4th.
See ya.